Hello, my name is Václav Fuxa, and I want us today to look at the relationship and cooperation of developers and test automation specialists in test automation. First, a few words about myself. I was a scientist and software developer in several different languages. I have spent the last 9 years in testing and its automation, and now I'm a test automation specialist at Česká spořitelna, the biggest Czech bank. Not only in my company, questions and discussions are raised about test automation. The debate often focuses on who should do it: developers, TA specialists, or both. The question is natural, since one of the outputs of test automation is tests. But on the other hand, automation, especially using a script written in a formal language, is similar to programming. The title of my talk is The Vital Divide: Developers and TA Specialists in Test Automation. The word divide as a noun has two meanings in English. One is difference, and the other one is disagreement. Let's see if there is, or needs to be, a difference or disagreement between developers and TA specialists, and how the divide between these two species can be made vital. What I can rarely hear explicitly, but what is assumed in some discussions and articles by those outside the testing community, is the assumption that developers can carry out automated testing because it's a kind of programming. Let's put aside the other objections to this thesis and consider this one only. Test automation requires more than merely writing tests, just as development requires more than just writing code for an application. Let us look at what demands the ISTQB places on TA specialists. Here is a quote from ISTQB materials. When someone achieves the title of Advanced Test Automation Engineer, they should be able to perform the following tasks related to test automation. We do not need to read the whole text, only skim the words highlighted in color. Integrate automated testing, evaluate automation technologies, create an approach and methodology, enable the transition of testing to an automated approach, optimize testing assets, and so on. There are many tasks described here, and I dare say the developers would hardly be able to tackle them all. But one can say, okay, we do need a TA specialist to perform these specific tasks, or maybe two of them if we start automating tests, but usual routine functional tests of code can be written by developers, right? I don't think so. There are several reasons for my disagreement. They are of a personal, mental, economic, and practical nature. Let's explore them. First, I want to discuss the personal and mental differences between developers and testers. Developers are people who build and create things. Like every creator, they want their work to function and to be useful. That also means they want their code to be free of bugs, and they hope there are none. Testers do not believe it. They want to prove it. But their intention is also to have a functional and useful application. And so they want the bugs they find to be fixed. What does this mean for testing? Developers can devise test scenarios to confirm the functionality easily. This ability is important for creating unit tests, for instance. However, their mindset prevents them from coming up with negative test scenarios. They are not and cannot be good at thinking about ways to break their code. This is where testers must come and devise procedures to examine the application without mercy. Let's move on to the next point. Developers naturally know how things are implemented, and so they can get lost in details and in testing the details. Their approach is beneficial for writing unit tests, but they live with assumptions about how things should behave and what bugs they might have in their code. They are biased by their knowledge. In contrast, testers usually lack the knowledge and can devise tests with a clear head, making only a few assumptions about possible bugs. This approach can result in a higher number of found bugs. But the differences don't end here. The idea of the application must be split up into a set of requirements to make it manageable for developers. Additionally, a large project usually has many developers, each of whom can focus on a particular area of the application. As a result, developers tend to specialize and see things in a slightly isolated manner. On the contrary, testers, for some reason, do not specialize in any aspect or part of the application. Moreover, even the tiniest test, especially one performed from the front end, exercises many software components of the application. Thus, testers can see the application in a much more comprehensive way than developers, and they should, because they are representatives of its users who see it the same way. What does this mean for testing? Developers are unlikely to come up with complex texts that resemble how users will use the application. This is where testers must come and design them. Even though a bad user experience can hardly be tested by an automated test, testers can easily detect poor usability during its implementation, because they see the application as a means of satisfying the user's needs. Finally, developers are probably people who want to develop the most. If they should do test automation, they are unlikely to enjoy it as much as they enjoy developing. In other words, if developers had wanted to test, they would have become testers. Moreover, developers will have just a little motivation to improve in test automation and cultivate this craft. On the contrary, testers want to test, want to improve at testing, and want to improve testing. In summary, there are several inherent differences between developers and testers. They cause that the tasks a tester should perform are not easily transferable to be done by a developer. If developers are asked to do automation of higher level tests, testers may not be satisfied with their work and its outcomes, and rivalry or even competition can emerge between them. It can look something like this. I don't know if the lioness is a TA specialist and hyenas are developers, or vice versa, but I do know that the carcass is their test automation project. So there are two different species. But of course, we need the attitudes and skills of both developers and testers. Here could be an idea, and it does come up in reality. What about crossbreeding them? To have one person who can develop and automate tests at a high enough level. Let's imagine it. That person needs to have the contrasting attitudes and mindsets we discussed earlier and be able to switch between them as needed, depending on the task at hand. In addition, one of these areas is unlikely to match their personal preferences. This person would probably be overloaded. All issues will be assigned to them because they can do them all. In addition, you will have difficulty in finding and hiring such a scarce person. And even if you do hire them, they will be more expensive than a developer because their skills are less common than those of a developer. And if you happen to hire and pay them, you definitely will not want them to do any testing. This would be a waste of your money because the testing could be done by a less technically skilled person who is probably much cheaper to hire. In short, it makes no economic sense to require one person to have both skill sets, unless your project is so small that one person is enough. I'm going to show you a photo of such a rare creature, half developer, half tester. I call it a devilister. Notice the exhausted posture of the animal and the frantic expression of its face, as if it strives hard to fulfill its duties of both developer and tester. Not speaking about raising a new baby devilister. This is not the way. What now? We have two distinct species. We need qualities of both, and we cannot crossbreed them to have all in one. We should allow them to exist and work together on the same project. How could this be achieved? We can start building their cooperation on their similarities, and there are, or could be, many. They have a common goal: to deliver an application and to make it useful. They have different roles in the process and different ways of doing it, but the aim of their efforts is the same. This is very important. So they are in the same boat, and they should be members of the same crew, I mean the same team. Not only does it foster communication between them, but it allows them to see each other as human beings. The developer is not just a creature with weird vocabulary and manners, and the tester is not just a nitpicker annoying with even the tiniest bug. They are colleagues, and they can find out they like the same food, watch the same movies, and so on. They even have common knowledge outside the application. For instance, they both need to know the development cycle and many other things not related to the application, but to its development. Besides, even TA specialists are able to create a formal code. I mean, this of automatic tests. They know how to build things, but they do it to have a mightier and faster tool to find weak points of the application. Besides, even a developer must write tests, the unit tests, so both can sync in a precise way. They are not as far apart as it might seem, are they? But these similarities would be in vain without their mutual understanding and respect. Developers need to see testing as a domain of its own, different from development, but not inferior to it. On the other hand, testers need to respect that developers sometimes deserve a special style of communication. We have seen several things developers and TA specialists have in common. Considering this all, I can see the conditions under which they can perform the same tasks. First, They should be technically skilled enough and personally capable of it. We said this is not easy or perhaps even possible. Although one person cannot work on a single task in multiple roles, imagine someone reviewing their code. Therefore, I regard this kind of collaboration suitable only for a limited time where there is no other option. What I want to promote is their actual cooperation, not the distribution of tasks. Here is where synergy can occur. First, developers can be entrusted with implementing higher-level tests, but only those designed by testers, CJ experts, or other representatives of users. But developers can also contribute to test automation in other ways because there are its aspects where developers are superior to testers. For example, they can share their methods for managing tens of thousands of code lines. They can advise testers on how to name and organize source files, how to conduct code reviews. Even the code of automatic tests deserves this. And how to refactor the code. They could share their knowledge about creating and following a coding standard. And it is useful even for automatic tests. And in general, they could help them to design the process of developing tests, since it is similar to the process of developing the application. And it is a part of the development cycle in a broader sense. The other area where developers have an advantage over testers is many technical matters. TA specialists need knowledge of version control software, best practices for managing branches, and how to integrate their tests into a CI/CD pipeline. Developers can be of great help here, as these are their routine tasks. They can even help testers design web selectors for automated testing, and you can even come up with other tasks where developers can contribute to test automation with their help or knowledge. Their cooperation can then look like mutualism of anemones and clownfish. They protect each other from each other's enemies. To conclude my talk, we have seen that the development of automatic tests differs from application development, and that for several reasons, even TA specialists differ from developers in their mindsets, knowledge, approach to the application under test, and personal preferences. Not only does this make intricate to have a developer and a TA specialist in one person, but there are also economic and personal reasons that make it hard to hire and pay such a person. Also, the design of tests should be unbiased, and the designer should not know the implementation of the application under test, which is hard to imagine in one-person setup. The last reason for distinguishing between developers and TA specialists is the testing craft itself, which will slowly deteriorate if there is nobody fully dedicated to it. So we need both developers and TA specialists, and we want them not to compete. Their genuine cooperation, not just the distribution of tasks to them, is possible if they focus on their common goal, respect each other's different personalities, and appreciate each other's expertise. And I want to emphasize that the test automation is the tester's expertise. Under these conditions, both parties can contribute to test automation with what each does best. Looking at the title of my talk, The Vital Divide, we can say there should be a divide between developers and testers in the sense of difference, but not in the sense of disagreement. Such a divide is vital for the quality of automated tests and testing as a craft. That's all from me. I thank you for your attention, looking forward to your questions, and wish you happy scripting.
Awesome stuff. I think this is a controversial topic. I'm surprised the questions aren't lighting up. So get your questions in now. Vaslav, I see you in the green room, about to go live. Let's do this. Hey, welcome to RoboCon.
Hello, hi to all. Thank you for watching my talk.
Good stuff. Like I said, I think this might be controversial, but make sure we understand you're not saying devs are above testers. You're just saying they're different skill sets based on what they're focusing on, is what it sounds like.
Yeah, it is what I wanted to say.
Very cool.
They
Whoop. Sorry. I had that view not set up. So we have some questions coming in. Give me 1 second and I'll pull you in there as well. The first question is from Peter. He wants to know, where is, according to the right place to divide test automation development work between testers and developers in the test automation pyramid?
Yeah, I think it depends on many factors. For example, what's the application we wanted to test, the maturity of the team, the size of the team, and several other factors. Yeah, for a more technically designed application, you will probably have the divide between test automation specialists and developers higher, and when the user interface is the main part of the application, you will probably want the divide be lower. Something like this depends on several factors.
Excellent. Gino wants to know, are there any metrics you recommend for both developers and testers to measure collaboration effectiveness and overall test automation maturity?
I don't recommend any metric. It is very hard to measure testing according in my opinion, and this is not an exception to the real. I'm trying not to suggest any metric. Just let's say some soft metric like feelings of the members of the team and their output, the number, let's say the number of tests they are able to produce.
Okay. You know, a big trend is STATs. You know, someone like you said that does it all. What's your definition then of an STAT?
Yeah, probably what I mean by a TA specialist is something like a software developer in testing. I think these are similar concepts, but I don't know the definition of. I think software developer in test is the definition which Microsoft came with, and I don't know their definition, but it is similar to TA specialist as I'm using the term.
The test role sometimes turns into a factory role where we're expected to churn out new automated test strategy ideas daily. Would you agree? Thoughts?
Yeah, it is, but yeah, I do agree. But I think the role of the testers. I think they should enjoy their jobs, and test automation is something which can. I'm sorry.
Take your time.
When the test automation is on the fly, they don't need to do many chores regarding testing, and it is I think more fun for them, and they do enjoy their job more.
So you mentioned test automation as testers' expertise. Some, however, argue devs should own automated unit tests or some sort of automation. Where do you draw the line between dev and testers?
Yeah, there was a similar question before. Yeah, I do think that that unit tests should be made by developers. Yeah, the higher level, highest level tests, like tests of user interface, should be made by testers, or test automation specialists. And where's the let's say border between those two groups? It depends on the type of the application and majority of the team, as I said before.
Okay. What would you recommend to favor collaboration between developers and testers?
To communicate. The communication, I think, it's the cornerstone of every collaboration.
Love it. Absolutely. You know, it's always the soft skills that tend to be the hardest, and communication is huge, right?
Definitely.
Sergey wants to know, a very good topic raised. What about managers? What mindset is the best for a manager team lead?
Mm-hmm. I think the manager or team lead should be aware of feeling of their people, and they should want to have their people to be more the most happy and most content with their work, and this should lead to the best productivity.
All right. So if and here's an interesting question for Greg. What are the effective strategies to avoid compromising test automation teams' efforts to adopt framework languages that developers prefer? Developers aren't even going to contribute. Why would you choose the same language that the developers are using? A lot of people do that. Any thoughts?
I do understand the question. I think even developers should write some automated tests. It means at least unit tests, and they do it in some language or some framework or something like that. But for developers, for TA specialists, probably another tool or another language is more suitable. So developers are writing their own tests in a language or their tool, and the TA specialists write their tests in another language or another tool. This is how I see.
100% agree. Next one's for Peter. Last question. Seems to me an agile team in the end, I don't meet teams where it isn't something like an SDAT role. Is it possible? I don't know. I tend to agree.
Yeah, it is possible. I personally didn't mean many teams, so I can't give you any strong advice or strong opinion.
Well, awesome session. Like I said, really important topic, and I thought controversial, but maybe it's just me. But thank you so much for contributing to RoboCon Online again. Appreciate you.
Thank you for watching.
Thanks.
Bye.
Cheers.